The Stoic View of Death. What is death, and how should we deal with it? This is one of the most fundamental and universal questions that humans have asked throughout history, and that different schools of philosophy have tried to answer. One of the most rational and realistic answers comes from the philosophy of Stoicism, a school of thought that originated in ancient Greece and Rome, and was later revived and popularized by modern thinkers such as Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, and Seneca. Stoicism teaches that the ultimate goal of human life is to achieve happiness, which is not dependent on external things such as wealth, fame, power, or pleasure, but on our own inner state of mind. Happiness is attained by living in harmony with nature and by cultivating virtue, reason, and self-control. Stoicism also teaches that death is a natural and inevitable part of life, and that we should not fear or avoid it, but rather face and embrace it with dignity and courage. In this video, we will explore the Stoic view of death and how it can help us to live a better and more meaningful life. What is death according to Stoicism? According to Stoicism, death is not a thing or an event, but a process and a transition. Death is not a punishment or a tragedy, but a release and a return. Death is not an end or a loss, but a beginning and a gain. Stoicism teaches that everything that exists in the world is composed of two elements, matter and spirit. Matter is the physical and material aspect of things, and spirit is the vital and rational aspect of things. Matter and spirit are constantly changing and transforming, according to the natural order and laws of the universe, which are governed by a divine and rational principle called logos, which is the source of all wisdom and order. Stoicism teaches that human beings are part of nature and that they have a dual nature. They have a body, which is made of matter, and a soul, which is made of spirit. The body is mortal and perishable, and the soul is immortal and imperishable. The body is subject to the laws of nature and fate, and the soul is subject to the laws of reason and virtue. Stoicism teaches that death is the separation of the body and the soul, and the dissolution of the body into its elements, and the return of the soul to the logos. Death is not something that happens to us, but something that we do by following the natural and divine plan. Death is not something that we can control or avoid, but something that we can accept and embrace with dignity and courage. Why should we not fear death according to Stoicism? According to Stoicism, we should not fear death because death is not a harm or an evil, but a natural and inevitable part of life. Stoicism teaches that the only things that are good or evil are the things that are within our control, which are our own thoughts, opinions, judgments, and actions. Everything else, such as our body, health, wealth, reputation, relationships, and events, are neither good nor evil, but indifferent and have no effect on our happiness or virtue. Stoicism teaches that death is not a harm or an evil, because death does not affect our soul, which is the source of our happiness and virtue. The soul is immortal and imperishable, and cannot be harmed or corrupted by anything. The soul is also rational and free, and can choose how to respond to anything. The soul can choose to view death as a natural and inevitable part of life, and to accept it with calmness and detachment. Stoicism teaches that death is not a harm or an evil, because death does not deprive us of anything that is good or valuable. The only things that are good or valuable are the virtues such as wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance, which are the qualities that make us good human beings, and that are the same for everyone, regardless of their circumstances. The virtues are within our control and cannot be taken away from us by anything. The virtues are also sufficient for our happiness and do not depend on anything else. How should we face and embrace death? According to Stoicism. According to Stoicism, we should face and embrace death by living well and dying well, by living in harmony with nature, and by cultivating the virtues. We should also face and embrace death by using the following principles and practices of Stoicism. Understand the nature and purpose of death. and do not let it disturb your peace of mind or happiness. Remind yourself that death is a natural and inevitable part of life, and that it is part of the natural and divine plan. Remind yourself that death is not a harm or an evil, but a release and a return. Remind yourself that death does not affect your soul, which is immortal and imperishable, and that it does not deprive you of anything that is good or valuable, which are the virtues. Prepare yourself for death, and do not let it surprise or shock you. Imagine and rehearse the worst possible scenarios and how you would cope with them by using the exercise of premeditation of evils, premeditatio malorum. This helps you to reduce your fear and anxiety, and to increase your confidence and courage. It also helps you to appreciate and enjoy the present moment, and to not take anything for granted. Live every day as if it were your last, and do not waste your time or energy on trivial or irrelevant things. Make the best use of the present moment, and do not dwell on the past or worry about the future. Live according to your nature, and pursue the true goods of life, which are the virtues. Live according to your values and principles, and do not compromise or conform to the expectations or conventions of society. Live with gratitude and contentment, and do not be greedy or envious for what you do not have. Be ready and willing to die at any moment, and do not fear or avoid death. Do not cling to your life or your possessions, but be detached and indifferent to them. Do not mourn or regret your death, but be cheerful and optimistic about it. Do not die lamenting or complaining, but die smiling and thanking. Do not die in pain or agony, but die in peace and tranquility. Do not die alone or forgotten, but die with dignity and honor. The Stoic view of death is based on accepting death as a natural and inevitable part of life, and facing it with dignity and courage. The Stoic view of death is not based on fear or denial, but on reason and acceptance. The Stoic view of death can help us to live a better and more meaningful life by living in harmony with nature and by cultivating the virtues. The Stoic view of death can also help us to cope with the challenges and difficulties of life and to improve our character and behavior. We can face and embrace death according to Stoicism by following the principles and practices of Stoicism. By applying the principles and practices of Stoicism, we can face and embrace death and live a better and more meaningful life. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If so, don't forget to like, subscribe, and click the bell to get notified of new videos. I'd appreciate your comments and suggestions. Don't miss other interesting videos on my channel. See you next time.